everybody, it's Steve from Broken Galaxy here, and welcome to this week's episode of Push Start to Listen, where we take a look back at the week in video game news. Last week we got off pretty easy, wasn't a lot going on. This week certainly made up for it, so let's get to it. Tiger Woods is back in video games. 2K Games announced this week that they fully acquired HB Studio, who made the PGA Tour 2K20 game for them last year. Going forward, it'll be Tiger Woods PGA Tour once again. Now, those games did exist before, but they were made by EA, so a little bit of a twist there. HB Studio, while it seems like that may be their first golf game, at least kind of to the mainstream, they did make the golf club games beforehand, so they've got a lot of experience with it. It makes sense for 2K to go after Tiger Woods. He's kind of at the end of his redemption arc, especially if you've watched that documentary that came out on HBO this year, and you kind of get to see how that affected him. It's really a fantastic look at his life. You could have maybe tried getting another golfer, but somebody like Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, and even Rory McIlroy, who EA tried, it's just not the same as Tiger Woods. He's still a bigger household name. I'm really looking forward to this year's entry in the series. Last year was an excellent start. It wasn't perfect, far from it, to be honest. It did have a lot of flaws, but I'm really excited to have a solid golf game back in the sports schedule. Golf games are something that I've gone to a lot over the years. They're a fantastic game to put on when you want to watch a movie, listen to a podcast, whatever it may be. The last one I really enjoyed, I believe it was PGA Tour 12. It was whatever the one that had the first year with the Masters in it. Great golf game. So yeah, super excited to see what's coming out this year. In a bit of perhaps oddball news, Sony has acquired EVO, the fighting game tournament. I saw it posted on Twitter, I believe it was last night, and I just kind of was surprised. You know, Sony is certainly kind of been, I don't know if you want to go as far to say the default platform for most fighting games, but it seems to be most people do prefer to play on the PlayStation and tournament settings. Now, not all of EVO's games are PlayStation titles. You know, Super Smash Brothers is still a big part of it, and Sony does say that Smash will certainly be allowed at EVO. Let's hope that Nintendo agrees with that. But there was a statement that came out, quote from Steven Roberts, who is Sony's Vice President of Global Competitive Gaming. Fighting games have been a vital part of PlayStation's legacy and our community since the very beginning. We've been thrilled to partner with EVO over the years. This joint acquisition with RTS marks the new chapter of collaboration with EVO's co-founders Tom and Tony Cannon and their passionate community of fighting game fans. I mean, EVO is the big name in fighting game tournaments. Of course, you have regional tournaments. There's some other ones. CEO down in Florida is certainly a big tournament in the scene. But yeah, there's something about, you know, EVO that just, it kind of eclipses everything else. You know, it's always been seen as the big deal. Some of the most memorable moments in fighting game history have taken place at EVO. It's pretty cool to see that, you know, see Sony taking an interest, and hopefully this pushes it to be something bigger. Obviously, they've been struggling without having in-person events. You know, they didn't have anything in person last year. They're not going to have anything in person this year. So they probably need a little bit of support to get them through this, and Sony purchasing them should certainly do that for them. Fighting games have been something I've gone to a lot over the years, but I never in a million years could be good enough at a fighting game to be competitive in any situation. But I actually have some experience as a tournament organizer, and it's just to organize a small local tournament is a challenge. You're essentially a ringleader at that point, trying to wrangle everybody together. So to be able to do it on a massive stage like EVO, I'm sure they need as many resources as possible, and hopefully Sony gives them that boost. We'll see what happens this year as EVO continues to be online. Hopefully we get some announcements, maybe a new Street Fighter coming out. EVO's typically been a place where companies will announce some new fighting game, either characters coming or an entirely new game in the series, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. Today it was announced that the next patch for Cyberpunk 2077 is releasing. They didn't do it in their typical way of the yellow background post on Twitter, instead doing it as more through an in-game character on a website that got tossed up on. But I wanted to list through, you know, what's coming into the patch, because there's one in particular that I want to touch upon. So this is what's coming. Fewer cops randomly spawning directly behind you the second you put a toe out of line. This is their wording. Adjustments to speed and steering to make driving easier, including a sensitivity slider, tweaks to make cars control better even when the frame rate dips, a new unstuck feature that activates when you accelerate but don't move because you're stuck on something and have encountered some other strange anomaly, the option to turn off double tapping the movement key to have to dodge, and more options for WASD binding on the keyboards. The one I want to talk about is the fewer cops spawning directly behind you when you trigger your kind of wanted level. It's absolutely insane. That should be none. There should be no cops that randomly spawn behind you. I have to wonder if the reason why they can't eliminate it is because they actually don't have a real wanted or bounty system in place that leads cops to your location. I played through all of Cyberpunk. I had about 45 hours in my playthrough, and I honestly only ever triggered the cops coming when I was driving, and it was really easy to drive away from them, so I never encountered them on foot. But I mean, you can go on YouTube and watch a million instances of cops randomly spawning directly behind you whenever you're up to something. These small patches are making progress, but I really think that the problem with Cyberpunk is something that can't be fixed in a patch. You would have to re-record voice actors, you'd have to rewrite some of the script, you would have to really tear that game apart to fix some of the core problems with that game. But it's a step in the right direction. They got a long way to go. I still am hopeful that by the end of this year, it is a game that can at least be recommended to check out. I don't know if it's ever going to get to the point where it's like a must-play experience. Like, somebody comes to you and is like, I need a new game to play, and the first thing you say is Cyberpunk 2077. I don't think we're ever going to get there. But I'd like to at least get to a point where you can comfortably say, like, yeah, it's got some problems, but I think it's worth playing. It's going to take some time to get there, though, so hopefully this is the first of many patches that address some of the absolutely plaguing issues that this game has. Square Enix had their version of a Nintendo Direct on Thursday, where they updated some games that have already come out, but they also announced a few new ones, and there was a couple that piqued my interest that I wanted to talk about. First off is the new entry in the Life is Strange series. Life is Strange 2 Colors was announced along with a remaster of Life is Strange 1, and I wanted to talk about that because we're at the point where a remaster of a game that's on the Xbox One and PS4 is a little strange, but it looks like they are going to put some work into it. Here's a quote from Kotaku about that. The game will feature updated animations and visuals courtesy of a new facial motion capture performance, as well as various engine and lighting upgrades. Both of those games will be releasing this fall. Life is Strange was a series I really liked. I like the Don't Nod games, and I like games of that style. While Don't Nod is no longer involved in making Life is Strange, I really do enjoy that particular genre of game. Last year's Tell Me Why, made by Don't Nod, was one of my favorite games of the year, and I'm certainly excited to see what comes next for Life is Strange. I tried getting through Life is Strange 1 multiple times, and I honestly don't know why I couldn't finish it. It certainly wasn't because of the content of the game. I didn't find it boring. There was a few issues with controls, a little clunky here and there, but I could push through that. So I honestly don't know why I couldn't get through it. It's certainly probably at the top of my list of games that I need to complete that I've tried to start a couple of times. So I'm definitely going to be keeping track of this one because I really do like what they've done with these games. Next up was the former Project Althea. This was a game that was announced as a PlayStation 5 exclusive last year. On Thursday, we got the name. It's going to be called Forspoken, and the world that the game takes place in is Althea. I was incredibly impressed by the small amount of gameplay that was showed. It looks super fluid. It's very fast-paced. The graphics look incredible. I'm really excited to see more. It's got a 2-year console exclusive on the PS5, so maybe we'll see it on Xbox after that expires, but it will be released on PC the same day as the PS5 version. It's got this really interesting look. It seems to have the woman that's the main character seems to be very modern day. It looks like she's wearing like a pair of jeans and Chuck Taylors, and she's somehow transported to this like mythical world where there's dragons and magic. It was described as kind of like maybe she developed some type of like witch-like powers, but I really do suggest you check out the footage that I'm putting next to me right here and get an idea of what it looks like. Coming out next year, and it's going to be, I mean, I really think that they got something here. If they know how to market this thing, man, the hype train going to go right up. In some totally bummer news this week, Activision Blizzard announced layoffs to their esports and live events division, and then piggybacked on top of that, it was announced that their CEO studio will be getting a $200 million bonus amidst those layoffs. And I kind of wanted to get into this a little bit. So I actually kind of wrote something up so I wouldn't have to kind of just go off the top of my head here with this. So initial reports said that 50 employees were laid off, though there were some reports later on that said it's closer to 200. Jason Schreier has a quote, "U.S. workers will receive a minimum of 90-day severance and health benefits for an entire year, as well as job transition support." That spokesperson that he spoke to also went on to say that they were given $200 gift cards to Battle.net, which is the Blizzard online game service. I wanted to talk about this in two different ways. I wanted to talk about this from the perspective of a business, and I also want to talk about this a little bit as someone who was once part of a mass layoff. In October of 2019, the company I was working for went through mass layoffs. They eliminated, I think it was a little bit more than 15% of their entire workforce, and it was done in the most unceremoniously way possible. I was a veteran member of the company. I had worked there for over 4 years, which doesn't sound a lot, but this is a company that wasn't around for much longer than 4 years, at least in terms of what we were doing. It was not a one-on-one thing. It was done in groups, which is, boy, that gets to you a little bit when it's just like, let's group all these people together in a room, tell them they're gone, and then get them out of here and just conveyor belt on down the line. So I know how these people are feeling. It is rough. It's not fun. I will say though, thankfully the company I work for did not try and give me a $200 gift card to our store, because man, that would have been the biggest slap in the face you could possibly think of. I can't imagine what the people that were laid off were feeling when they said, hey, we get that you're losing your job, but here's a $200 gift card. Maybe you can buy some Hearthstone packs. I will say this, 90 days of severance is pretty damn good. That's better than you're going to get in a lot of places. That's about what I got, to be honest. I think I ended up getting close to 3 months worth of pay, maybe a little bit less than that. The health benefits for a year, you would have to assume that a company like Activision Blizzard has a pretty good health insurance policy. That's incredible. You are not going to get that anywhere. I honestly don't know when I got laid off what the situation was with continuing health benefits. Our health insurance had gotten so bad I had jumped shipped and gone on to my wife's policy like a year before, but I do think that they extended it out for people for a little bit. I know that people that were just fired that got it extended out a little bit at times. So yeah, it's a sucky situation and something I can definitely empathize with. I want to shift focus a little bit though and look at this from the perspective of someone who owns a company. It sounds horrible, especially after they posted their very good financial earnings recently, but the perspective has to be, with the United States and much of the world still locked down and live events not happening, they are not going to keep paying for a division that isn't doing anything. WWE did the exact same thing. With no live events running, they got rid of those jobs. If it's something that is not needed by a company is not going to pay for it. Pure and simple. That doesn't make it right. It's just, that's the way it is from a business perspective. The second that something either no longer makes you money, unless you are intending for it to not make you money, which does exist if you're not aware, there are whole wings of companies that are designed not to make money for various reasons. But if your, I guess, I want to say job title, but your department or division of a company is designed to make money, and it is no longer making money or is no longer necessary or needed, yeah, it's gonna get rid. They're gonna get rid of it. That's not to say that they couldn't change. People get vaccinated, things start opening back up, and we can have live events, mass crowds inside sports arenas for their esports stuff. As they were doing the Overwatch League stuff with Call of Duty. It's not to say they couldn't bring something back. I will say that I'd be really surprised if any of those people want to work for that company again, especially after the way they treated them. But yeah, what are you gonna do? It's not fun, and I definitely understand where they're coming from. Game Pass continues to get bigger and bigger. Last week, it was announced that a slew of Bethesda games were moving onto the service now that the acquisition was finalized between Microsoft and Bethesda. This week, we finally got EA Play as part of Game Pass for PC. It already migrated onto regular Game Pass a little while ago. It was an 11th hour decision. I believe it was either the day of or the day before when we were supposed to get EA Play on Game Pass for PC, where it was announced that was not happening. It looks like there was something to do with the way that EA I don't know if it's the Origin launcher, but there's something to do with the way that their games operate on a PC. It's actually, I fired up Game Pass for PC today just to be, kind of look around. I actually was already paying for EA Play before because there were some games I wanted to play on it. But yeah, you have to install an external launcher for these games to work. So there's certainly some kinks to be worked out. Not to mention, we also had Outriders announce for Game Pass, which caused a lot of people upset. I saw plenty of Reddit threads, Twitter posts about people being upset because they had pre-ordered Outriders. I'm going to get to that in a second. I just wanted to wrap up by saying that Empire of Sin and Narita Boy were also announced as coming to Game Pass for PC. So to circle back to the Outriders issue and being upset that a game that you pre-ordered is going to Game Pass, be aware that in this day and age, anything can happen with Game Pass, and any game could pop up on it at any point. It's just one of those things. But it leads to an issue that gets talked about a lot. Should you pre-order a game? Sometimes there are very valid reasons to pre-order a game. Maybe it's an existing franchise that you're very invested in, and they're doing some cool pre-order bonuses, maybe some physical goods, something like that, and I can certainly understand that. Maybe it's a game that you're just so excited about that you just want to, I don't know, I guess you're just so excited you just have to give them money months and months and months, perhaps even a year before the game comes out, just for, I guess, whatever reason you've decided in your head. And then there's the other side of it, which is we've seen time and time again why it is not great to hype up games so well, which is I'm going to talk about in the next segment. But why you shouldn't pre-order early, just take one look at Cyberpunk and you'll understand why. But I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a different spin on why you should pre-order a game that I don't see talked about too much online. I'm sure people do talk about it, but I don't see it that often. And that's because some people can simply not financially afford to pay full price to games, especially because PS5 and Xbox Series X games are $70 now. They can't afford to buy a lot of games at full price. There's even people with good jobs that make decent money that can't afford to keep up with games coming out all the time that they want to play and pay full price for them. Pre-ordering a game, specifically at a local independent store that may sell new games, or more likely a GameStop, does allow you the ability to pay that game off over time. You can put $5 down or whatever amount you want, and you can pay a little bit over time. You pre-order a game that's $70 7 months in advance and $10 a month leading up to it, you've got it paid off by the time you're ready to pick it up. It's a really viable option, and for a lot of people, it's kind of the only option. So I don't like when people demonize pre-ordering as a whole. I don't like blanket statements like that. You never know what somebody's situation is and why they want to pre-order something. While you can certainly blame somebody for being disappointed in a game after they pre-order or being upset that they pre-ordered a game and now it's going to Game Pass, but remember, you can't get a refund on a pre-order. You can always get your money back on a pre-order. Don't always talk down to somebody because they're pre-ordering. You never know. Maybe that's the only way they can play those games. Last up tonight, I wanted to talk about Dying Light 2 and why you should stop getting your hopes up over a game and building things up in your head and getting into an echo chamber online with other people that are also building it up. Dying Light 2 was announced in 2018 and it's still not out yet, and apparently some people are very, very upset about that. The development team released a short video reading some of the tweets and comments that they've received concerning the delayed game. Certainly highlighted how people take things far too seriously when it comes to hyping up games in their own head. They use some very choice words when talking to those developers. I don't want to dig deeper into that toxic mindset because we would be here for hours. It's just really not worth it. In the video that they put out, they do show some gameplay, and they do promise that more info on the game is coming soon. Xbox and Sony will be certainly having summer events. Don't be shocked to see it, at one of those. This is a big lesson about how we are living in a post-Cyberpunk 2077 world about not announcing your game too soon. Obviously, when the game was announced in 2018, nobody could have seen what was coming with Cyberpunk, but going forward, you would certainly hope that studios learn the lesson the easy way instead of learning the lesson the hard way. I don't make games. I don't develop games. I don't publish games. I have nothing but respect for the people that do. It is a tough industry. It is a brutal industry at times, and it is certainly not fun spending your life's work working on something for it to be torn to shreds in the media by either critics or fans or whatever it may be. That sucks. However, stop announcing games years in years before they come out. Now, I can certainly understand you announce a game and it's going to come out next year and then it gets delayed to the year after. That happens. I understand that. In a weird way, we can kind of give everybody some leniency with this because 2020 was a wash. 2021, we may not see the games that we were supposed to see this year, which could lead to a completely packed 2022. You never know. But we really got to stop buying into this hype culture, and you just get disappointed over it. We build up albums or movies and now video games in our heads, and we try to make them into this big thing, and then there's people that allow it to define their personality online, and they snap back with venom anytime anybody challenges them about it, and it's just like, who wins there? You're making yourself feel bad, you're making other people feel bad, and it's really just not worth it. Dying Light 2 looks cool. I like the first one. I'm looking forward to it. I have no intentions of swearing at developers on Twitter because I'm sure they are working as hard as they possibly can to get that game out. Just gotta be a little nicer, everybody. That's going to wrap things up for tonight. I want to thank you, as always, for hanging out and listening. Last week, I said I was going to put some more content up on the channel and do some streaming, and I genuinely did try. I tried recording a look at the Outriders demo because I was curious about it. I tried for 2 hours to get that to work. The second I started recording anything, that game went right into a ditch. I'd like to think, a fairly powerful computer, and I certainly have no problems recording other things. I don't have problems recording this. I stream games perfectly fine on Twitch, but man, something about the Outriders demo just did not want to play ball. I tried recording some other stuff. It just didn't come out right. I wasn't satisfied with the way I was in it. I think I was just not had my head in it. So stuff is coming. I want to switch a little bit though, because if you look back on this channel a year ago when I started it and I took a huge break in uploading stuff, I did kind of these short form video essay type things, and I think maybe that's where I should get back to. So I've actually, over the past week, been working on a new one of those. It's about weird arcade cabinets, and I've been compiling a bunch of research, a bunch of footage where I can find it, and a bunch of images to be able to show you some of these truly bizarre arcade cabinets that have existed in our time. So I'll be working on that. I am going to start streaming on Twitch more. I've got a bunch of stuff lined up, and I'm going to be bringing back some Twitch streams I used to do where I just play old arcade games. We hang out and talk about old arcade games. I really enjoy doing that. I've been scouring my long list of arcade games for both classics and also things that I have never played before, because it's always fun to play something new. So look for that coming soon. If you want to check that out on Twitch, it's right below BRKNGLXY. You can follow me on Twitter, where sometimes I talk about video games, but I also talk about a lot of pro wrestling, so I'm always looking to talk wrestling with people. I want to thank you again for checking us out. We'll be right back here next week. Have a good night.